Okay, thank you very much, Nick, and to the Illinois Plant Society. I'm honored to speak to you today about some of the changes and updates that we've had to the Flora of Illinois. The FQA list that we have to use in the entire state was published in 1997. For those of you who use FQA, that is the most recent list that we have to work with. Not only has there been a number of nomenclature changes, but we've added a bunch of species to our flora. And there's some other interesting things as well that I'm going to focus on tonight. I think I know almost everybody in this room. I've either met or previously or met this weekend. And that made me feel really good, and I'm glad that you're here. I have current and former affiliations with a lot of conservation organizations in Illinois. As Nick mentioned, I'm currently coordinator of the Plants Concern program in Southern Illinois, which is through the Chicago Botanic Garden. Also, you can find me online as the Illinois Botanizer at the website, illinoisbotanizer.com. Lots of content there. When I moved to Illinois in 2004 to go to graduate school, so I'm going into my 21st year of botanizing in the state, and I take a lot of photos that I share on the website and access them there. So I do like to have a brief land acknowledgments about the fact that this really ties into what we're doing and what we're interested in with the land in Illinois. We're all the cultures that are living here, stewards for the land. That knowledge and that culture has largely been eradicated, and I think it's useful, worthwhile exercise to just think about the importance of that and how it relates to the plants that we all appreciate so much. Before I get into the heart of the talk, I did want to say a little bit about Dr. Mulderbach. This is one of my favorite photos of him I took in 2019 when I was visiting at his home. Look at what he wrote in my Flora book. Congratulations to the best young botanist anywhere. Oh. I mean, that's so I don't know if I can do that, but I'll take it. And it's really, when unfortunately he was wiped out a few years before he passed this last November. And we really got close in that time. And he was sad and lonely, as you can imagine, and it was really priceless to be able to really build on our relationship more. He lives 10 minutes away from where I live. Every couple months, I had notes on my phone of the things that I wanted to talk to him about. I would collect over time, and we'd go over there and we talk about plants and places and all this stuff. And I knew that there weren't a lot of people that were feeding him that kind of information that he relished so much. So it was, mostly later in his life that we became close, and it was just a precious relationship. He came to one of my talks at Giant City, was a participant in the audience for one of my talks, and it was really special. We took this photo afterwards there. And then last July, I took my University Flora class to meet him and talk to him, and it was very powerful and inspiring experience, and that is the last time that I ever saw him. So it's very special. And my friend Christina gifted me with this tie that was formerly his. I thought I was wearing this tonight. We treasure very much. Okay, so I've split this talk into several categories. So some of these are true additions to the state. Some are native, some are non-native, things that have never been seen, observed in Illinois before. But I have some other categories as well. So let's start with probably the most exciting stuff first, state records. Ugularia floridana is almost too unbelievable to expect that it actually was found in Illinois. And this is the one that we wrote about in the newsletter. It's called Hidden in Plain Sight, because it truly was. It occurs at Heron Pond Nature Preserve, right along the path. As soon as you cross the bridge, you can see it on the right side of the trail, and it occurs with Ugularia sesquifolia. And it looks similar to Ugularia sesquifolia, and it blooms for about a week. And if you weren't seeing blooms or looking at them closely, it would be really easy to overlook, which apparently has happened for over 50 years, at least since the Heron Pond Nature Preserve has been a nature preserve, which is significant because my friend and colleague and assistant with Plants of Concern for the first 2 years was Travis Neal. He also worked with the Friends of the Forest, the Friends of the Nature Preserves, and they were doing a 50th anniversary celebration at that site. And he photographed this plant and put it on iNaturalist. And Ryan Sorrells, many of you know, lives in Northern Illinois, has a very thorough understanding of not just the flora of the state, but of the world, honestly. And he looked at this and said, that's not Uvularia sessilofolia, that's Uvularia floridana. And the difference is this bract right here. So the stalk of the flower is the peduncle, and the peduncle has a bract, a leafy bract on it. And he looked at that and said, that is not sessilofolia. Sessilofolia does not do that, and identified it as the species. I went through all my photos that I had of sessilofolia thinking, does this occur somewhere else? No, I did not find any other pictures, just at Heron Pine. Thousands of plants there along the trail occurring with sessilofolia. Overlooked. Here's the range map on it. It's down in adjacent state to Illinois. It's Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, Florida, and not even not many counties within those states where it's found. Truly remarkable find. Another one here, really exciting. Jenny Lesko, some of you met her. She led the hike to St. Kate today in the morning. She's a forester. I like to tell people that she's a forester who looks down. And she was looking down at a private site and found this orchid. It had never been documented in Illinois before. Deotia bifolia. You can see the two leaves, hence the name. This is an orchid that actually was found in Missouri within the last 15 years. That's new to that state. Climate change is real. Plants are moving forward. We see all kinds of examples of that. But this orchid seed is minute, dust-like. It travels far and wide. It was growing in white pine plantation that wasn't even really that old. So how do we think about it? I'm not really sure. Inventive, native, and how to interpret all that. It is a native plant in North America that we've documented now in Illinois, and I visited it the last 4 years, and it's persisting. The landowners were gonna do some logging there. They decided not to, and so far the plants are persisting. So you can see the range on that. There's the Missouri county where it was found not too long ago. This is in Polk County, which would be this county right there. Another one is the red chokeberry, Aronia arbuifolia. We have 2 Aronias in the state, but they're not super hairy like this one, and they have black fruit. So these ones have red. I was teaching the Flora of Southern Illinois at Giant City State Park, and we were going up Shelter 1 bluff where it's really steep. And I stopped to look, and I'm talking about this plant, and I'm looking over. What's that? Continue with the plant I'm talking about. What is that? And I look over and I thought, looks like an Aronia. I'm not sure which. I'm really, we need to focus on what we're doing. So I just cast it aside and I couldn't sleep that night. Couldn't sleep. What is that Aronia? Went back and we still helped some friends determine it was more beautiful. It had never been documented before. And this was one that I found, and I thought, this is going to be my state record. And I had some assistants helping me with various things with plants of concern, and I said, I want you to search the area for these plants. Dr. Nick Brent had collected this previous to me, and unto my knowledge, so I cannot claim it as a me first to find this, but it is the only population that we know of in Illinois. How did it get there? Birds disperse these seeds. People sometimes plant Aronias. Are they? I don't know that, but they're occurring naturally there at spontaneously reproduced there at Giant City. You see the range there, throughout the southeast and to the south, but not in the. This was a fun one too. So Ian Kinzer and I were doing some work at Pyramid State Park in Perry County. And I had another landowner that there was a rare, but the heterant there that I talked about earlier was reported from his land. And I was skeptical. We went to go look. It turned out to be Linoleum spongia, which is a sponge plant, not what I was looking for. But because we went to his place that day, I took a different route into Pyramid State Park. Driving down the road, I got behind the road, behind the ditch. You see that? What is that? It's 6 feet tall. Turn around, back. The hybrid purple top, Tridens cross oklahomensis, is a hybrid between the super common Tridens flavus purple top and the very much less common Tridens strictus. And that's a little Korean hybrid. You can find a paper online by Theo Wetzel, who was with the Arkansas Native Plant Commission formerly, and he had a bunch of documented populations of this in Arkansas. So then we thought, well, everywhere so flava is everywhere, like this. Strictus is only in a few counties. Wherever there's strictus, you can find the hybrid. So we went to Franklin County where it was reported, Williamson County, Drexel County, we found the hybrid of all of them. At 2 counties left, so we can poke to search for this plant that hasn't been documented in the state previously. It's the one on the left there. Strictus is the one on the right. In fact, I couldn't even get a good map for it. So I took this one from the FSUS, which they have for Southern Illinois, and I'm going to investigate this with Alan Weekly and figure out, well, how did you know that this was in Illinois? Because it's not documented anywhere else. But that was a really cool grass find as well. This is a new one. So here's Ryan Sorrell, I mentioned earlier. He's now working with the Illinois Natural History Survey in Illinois Beach State Park. And just this summer, since he started, him and some others have documented this Clinton's bulrush. I messed up the title. It's a Trichophora. I think so. On the next one I have the right. Jesus, I messed it up. You can see just over the line in Wisconsin it occurs, but it had never been documented in Illinois until now in that county. That was fun. Some other ones from some other people. This is from Paul Markham. Lilium canadense is really pretty, and he documented it at Lodge Park, which is near Monticello, Illinois, in Piatt County. Unclear, vented. There are populations that have escaped from gardens. It's a little bit unclear on this one, but it is naturally occurring in the woods there, regardless of where it came from, new to the flora, Lilium canadense. You can see the range there for that one. Okay. Moving on to the second category is sort of an unfortunate category. We have some new things in the state that are invasive or at least non-native. And probably the most obvious one is Acaranthes japonica, which we've documented in the state for quite a number of years. It has expanded a lot more since then. So this here is my dog George, and it's showing how it sticks to animals like deer and really spreads that way, the Japanese chapflower that I documented 2 years ago in St. Clair County in Skyler Space, which is like East St. Louis area. So it's definitely on the move going north. You can see this the range from Bonath, a few counties in southern Illinois. Clarice and Nick, the Forest Service, we were out together. We saw this miniature beefsteak. It looks just like Gorilla frutescens, which is a beefsteak plant. It's a smaller version in a different genus. It's actually 2 species that are really hard to tell apart. We determined this one was Scabra. Nick and Clarice had actually get the credit for this one. They found it, and then we saw together, and they said, "Oh yeah, we saw this last week at this other side across the road." So we were able to document this is new. Could be a concerning one. It's concerning in other parts of the U.S., but just at one site that only on moved to the state. And then this is one from 2013 that actually is in the 2018 Virginia publication. I found this at Giant City State Park. It was the first documented location for it. I wrote it up in an article. New additions to the flora of the hollow ferns, Zirconium fortunii. It is an Asian species. It is used in landscaping. It has escaped throughout, the south, and it's probably limited by the winters, and with the winter being more mild, perhaps it's moved into Illinois then. So that's 10 years, 12 years old now, and we found it at a bunch of new places. That was Giant City State Park was the first place where we had documented that. Then you can see this range kind of scattered populations throughout the southeast. And then this one came in yesterday. David Bork was asking a bunch of people, what is this plant? It looks like it's got leaves of Jack in the Pulpit, but it's got a green dragon flower. And I thought, are you sure those the same plant? Those parts right there. And sure enough, they were. And I didn't know what it was. And Abel dug into it. He actually sent it to Ryan Sorrell, who seems to know every plant in the world. And he mentioned that it is Camellia. Tripariata, voodoo lily is an Asian green dragon, which is occurring nearby here in Jackson County. And it could be concerning, so we may want to encourage landowners to eradicate this plant that's often been planted. Okay, so let's go into some other things. Species splits. Some of these are species that were just one species for a very long time, and somebody dove in deeper and said, oh, there's actually 2 things here. I split them separately. And we find that they're both actually fairly common around. So, species splits, we have Carex branchii. common sedge in our flora. The key to this here is that here is the pistil scale. It's very narrow. It widens a little bit, but it's pretty much narrow all the way down. It's also sesquitose, meaning it's a tufted sedge. It's been split in, here's the range. Now, well, some of these ranges are based on we thought it was one species. So they're split into two. We have more work to do with the distribution. Here's Carex aureolensis, and the pistil scale on that here has a big flare to it. It's really narrow, and then there's a shoulder. It's like a white translucent. Comes down like this, and all the way down. So what I find is best is you take the spikelet and you break it in half, and you can look at it straight, and you can see those scales. It's a hard determination sometimes because they're so small. But this is also rhizomatous versus sesquitose, so that's another good character for that. And again, it's not in Monap, so I had to use Flora Southeast where you can see the range for that one. Now here's another one, Meadow Beauty, beautiful. The Rexia virginica occurs statewide. That's this one here with the darker color. Rexia mariana is the more pale colored one. There are several characteristics that seem to not be that consistent in my mind. So I think what's most useful is looking at the capsules, which look like little urns. You say, we earned this one. So this one has a tube that is about as long as the body. It's a short tube. That's for virginica. And this one here is mariana, where there's a longer tube, shorter body tube. And I like that character the best. Once we can see this late in the year, through the winter, even in spring, versus some more of the floral characters. And that's the range on the mariana, but it's been split to mariana interior. And it looks very similar. The difference is here, if you look at the FNA key, it says stem angles unequal or stem angles sub-equal. And when I read that, I was like, who wrote this key? I demand to know. I'm going to hit them across the face. What's the difference between sub-equal and equal? Well, or sub-equal and non-equal. So it's closer to equal. That's the only character listed. And if you look at this, it looks like this space is a little bit wider than the face on the perpendicular to that. It's very minute. I am not convinced that I'm able to identify this, but I was told by botanists that I trust and respect that that's what was growing here. So I wanted to bring that one to your attention. And again, no Monap map for it because it's too recent. And you can see that again. Alan Wheatley and his team at the University of North Carolina are on it. And not only do they have a great understanding of the distribution in this region that they are studying, but they are updating their website constantly as they learn new information comes in. You get a book, it's published, and it's static. And so the website and the app constantly being updated with their team. All right. I just threw in a couple possible new additions. These are ones that I'm still working on. There's just a couple that I found and from the extensive surveys that I've done in the Shawnee National Forest. There is a Heliopsis. I misspelled it. This is Heliopsis, not Helium. It's Heliopsis gracilis. Heliopsis heliandoides, the fall sunflower. Those flowers are like this big, with lots of ray flowers, basically. This one was about this big, with like 7 or 8 ray flowers. So I'm still looking into it. I didn't have a chance to throw a photo of it. And then Solidagozesia. We're seeing this Solidagozesia, which is the blue stem goldenrod. Normally pretty narrow leaves, often entire, maybe some teeth, very glaucous stem. That's the name blue stem goldenrod. There's one we're seeing with a much wider leaf and a lot more teeth, deeper teeth. It just looks different. And it's also rhizomatous. You see, several runners of it together. I'm still digging into this one. I haven't seen it flower, which would really help with this. But those are ones that I'm still working on. All right, now, rediscovery. So these are not new to the flora. These are things that we have in our flora that have not been seen for a very long time, many of them. And most of these are not my finds, and so I don't have photos of them, but Paul Markham and others, I reached out to the botanical community, said, give me some content for this slideshow, and here's some that came up. Andromeda is the bog rosemary, and not been seen for over 100 years. I believe Kent Gillett found these in a cattail marsh up in Lake County. We think 100 years is a long time for rediscovering something. Was it always there? No one looked. They come back. We don't know, but we documented it as extant in Illinois. Another one here, the Carnaby Pratensis, a variety palustris, was one that was updated as well. We have Cornus canadensis, right? This is a boreal species farther north. And we have a number of counties documented here in Illinois that hadn't been seen in a long time. They're able to be redocumented I'm not sure which county, but it hadn't been seen in many, many years, more than 20 of these. And then one of the coolest finds we have here, Daniel's in the crowd. He's involved in this. Grant Vessler, and this is Jeff Horn, DNR, and Caleb Baker, also with the Nature Reserves Commission. We're looking for the big lady slippers and found them. So people ask me today, what's your favorite plant? Can't do it. Can't do it. And then somebody said, oh, family. Oh, that's easy. Orchidaceae. Favorite plant. I want to see all the extant orchids in Illinois. And I had this one crossed off my list. I said, this extra has been seen in 30 years or 26 years. Nobody knew anything about it. So I thought, I guess they're gone. And, these folks, they dug into it. And sure enough, they found it. It was not this year, last year. Yeah. In late May up in Ogle County. So super cool find. In fact, if you do Google search, you can find an article from the Chicago Botanic Garden to discuss more about that. Super cool. You can see the range. It was once over in a few counties, but now it's just in Ogle, which is this one right here. Also, the same thing. I thought I couldn't get any intel about showy lady slippers in Illinois, and I wanted to see them. This picture here was in Missouri, where there's a number of populations, and I thought they're gone. They aren't there anymore. I don't know. Travis Neal, Michelle, Melissa Bregan with IGNR, they went to a site I won't mention, and it was a hard to get to area that's no parking lot, and they hiked in and they found it. So then I went the next year because I wanted to see it, and I was a few days later that I wanted to be, but we did see that, and you can say there is at least one site there along with the showy lady slipper, which is the state flower of Minnesota, which is my home state. But I've never seen it in Illinois. But look at all the counties that were mapped for it. Aww. Now this was in Lake. So Lake County is this one right here. There used to be good populations around Peoria, but the hydrology got all changed, and orchids just didn't persist. Orchids are already working really hard to maintain their life cycle, and they just couldn't keep up with the changes there for that particular one. Another one that was found recently, the Areophorum, or the cotton grasses. So it looks like a stem with like a cotton ball taped on the top of it. A really neat plant that has been found in a couple counties, relocated over after many, many years. And then this is probably the neatest one, and I sincerely apologize I didn't have a chance to put a photo in for it, but Paul Markham and others at the Illinois Natural History Survey were researching at Round Pond Nature Reserve in southern Polk County, where Illinois Audubon, and did a huge survey, lots of rare plants, and located some blue Wikia feral carpa there. Hadn't been seen in 150 years in Illinois, and they documented it. In Polk County, look at the county's map for it here. They found it in Polk County. It's this one down here. So remarkable find, the Ludwigia. I call this Ludwigia von Beethoven. And then mountain ash too, farther to the east and to the north. Hadn't been seen in Illinois for a long time. It was relocated in Ogle County, again right here. If you are where Ogle County is awesome. There's so much. That's where the Chusa Grasslands is. That's where we have the Georgeville Nature Reserve. It's in Castle Rock State Park. The Rock River. There's just so many awesome places in Ogle County. I cannot recommend it. So that's really cool. And then this one I was able to see. So Gregory Hayes found this in Vermilion County. And again, with help of Ryan Sorrells, that identified it on iNaturalist. A violet that had not been seen in a long time. Grant Vessler, again, with plants of concern, found some in at the down near the Displays Conservation Area in the shooting range. So when there's shooting going on, you don't go in there, needless to say. And here are all these clay pigeon pieces around and all and stuff. And somebody even said, if there's people there, we're just going to keep driving for cars. But we pulled in and no cars were there, so we went. And this was just, I was up there May 8th. We photographed this viola by our I've never seen before. So there's the range. It doesn't have much very big range at all throughout the state. Few counties formerly in Illinois, we found it in Will, this county right here. Oh, and that reminds me to tell you. So these maps are pretty decent with county records, county distribution. There are other sources to check as well. Grant and I have a spreadsheet of 350 state and county records that we're hoping to publish soon. It's a large effort to organize all this information, but basically there's a ton of new information that we have to add for. We've collected specimens that will be deposited in their area so we can document lots and lots of new county records. Okay, so now species found to be more common. There's just a few listed here. They're really fun. Carrots. Niagara marginata. So I also have a publication in Aerogenia for the species because Jody Shemp in 2011 inspired me to look for all the known locations for this in the database, which were just 3 at the time. And it was in Alexander, Polk, and Hardin counties. And that was all the information that was known. Since I started the Plants Conserve program in 2011, doing lots of surveys, I now have 26 sites from this set. We started with 3 in 2021. It is not rare. And it is easily overlooked because it blooms and fruits. It blooms in late March, produces fruit through April. By the beginning of May, fruits are gone, Aerogenia's falling off. You can't really identify it well. I've seen it enough now where I feel good about vegetative ID. If you really need Aerogenia to be sure, they're gone by the first week of May. So you have to be out early, you have to be knowing what you're looking for. And we have found thousands and thousands of clumps of this in 6 or 7 counties now. And they're called black edge sedge. You kind of see the scales there, a little bit of a brown edge to them. So this is the range. Clearly, I blew it up here so you can see Jackson, Union, Alexander, Polk, Hardin, a couple other outliers there as well. So that's definitely more common than we realized. Another one, Dicanthelium yankinensis. Who is looking at Dicanthelium besides Kurt? This is a very complicated and tough to know genus, and I didn't know this plant prior to doing a large survey in Polk County. And Abel and I found it together, and we thought, we keyed it out. We ended up finding it all over Polk County. So if you look at, here, first of all, it has these pale dots all over the stem. It's one of the best characters to identify it along the sheet, just along the sheet, particularly at the base. I've seen enough of it now, and the way it's so leafy that I can tell it from the similar Dicanthelium dichotomum. In any event, it says restricted to a few southern counties, and we haven't necessarily added any counties. The point is that in the National Heritage Database, there's like 6 occurrences for it, and we have way more than that, and not just more occurrences, but lots and lots of plants. We Polk County, along a stream terrace, look closely, we find this Gatkins panigrass. And then, of course, Tipularia tisical. This is a very common orchid now in Illinois. If you, I think it wasn't even located until the 1960s, the first locations in Illinois, and Nolan Rockings Illustrated says that it's rare. It's not rare. It is likely moving north with the warming climate. You can find the leaves in the winter. They're very conspicuous. The winter photosynthesizing orchid. Of course, the flowers bloom in early August, late July. The leaves are gone at that point. Of course, not every leaf individual will produce a flower. So leaves, super common in the winter, easy to see. Flowers, less so, but still pretty common. It's definitely one that is greatly increased in its abundance in the state. We can see all that they're just mostly southern Illinois. All right, the last one, some other notable finds that I wanted to bring to your attention. Scleria elegantha is one that if I look at here, the Bonat map doesn't even have it in Illinois. And if you look at the publication that I cited during my survey grant about Scleria Flora, I said Ebinger and Tucker 2011. It was Scleria in Illinois, was the title of their paper. And they said, we did not see any material that we would convince with Scleria elegantha, even though Jody Shim documented it during his thesis in 1994. Apparently no good specimen exists for if it did, it wasn't one that they had reviewed. So they said, this doesn't occur here. Jody showed it to me where he found it in Hardin County during his thesis. And I said, I see this. And I went on the internet and I searched Scleria elegantha, and my website comes up first, and here's a picture of it that I had taken. Well, what happened was in the Molenbach book, it says occasional throughout the state, which is, obviously incorrect. So when I learned it, I thought, well, here's another sedge that's, I just learned it's occasional. It didn't stick in my head as rare because of that. We found it in Alexander County, Wolf Creek, and then again in Bean Ridge. I was doing a survey. I found 5 new populations there. So I was able to add it.
Can you go back?
Yes.
Can you see?
Yes, sorry, yes. So the Scleria Flora I talked about earlier had bumps all over it. Bumps on top, on like a key. These are smooth, but there's another smooth one. This one here is Scleria triglomerata, and look, we call this the tubercles here, the collar. You can see how different that looks. These are actually tubercles. There's like 7 to 9 around the collar of the key. That is key to identifying these. Again, once you see these plants over and over, you start to realize it doesn't look so much like this other thing. But when you're learning them, this is what they cite in the book. It's just this little collar characteristic. Clearly different. 3 populations now that we have. In that one, I was tasked with writing a petition for to get it in endangered. And I did do it. And it is now an Illinois endangered species in Illinois. It's very elegant. I also wanted to mention Lemniscata flava, the rare native honeysuckle. We have it at 3 sites. It doesn't ever bloom. I've never seen blooms last year. Fountain Bluff, there's a section of it that's privately owned. And 10 years ago, the Nature Reserve Commission had been working with the new landowner, clearing out Princess Street, clearing vines. This guy bought a rock climber, so he wanted to clear out the bluffs, which could be concerning. In this case, it was good. It opened up the light. They flowered last year. In fact, last year, Dr. Molrock was there in April, and you were able to show him this plant. It grows up here on the top of the cliff, but if you go from the backside, you can kind of slowly make your way up. That isn't too technical, but when you get on the top of it, it moves. And of course, they were insisting that I experience the moving boulder while we're standing up there 40 feet off the ground. But that was a really neat one to see the distribution more common, in Missouri. And then when I started plants concern, I thought this is a rare plant. I've only seen it a few places. It's still rare. There's never a lot of plants per population. We started with 8, now we're at 26 subpopulations across 12 sites in 5 counties. So much more common than we had realized. We went to a site where there were over 100 several years ago, and last year there were 2. And that's really how this orchid behaves. It just doesn't correlate well with a lot of other things. It's just variable in its population dynamics. But very pretty non-photosynthetic orchid. We see the range there, just 5 counties of Illinois. Also, Spiranthus vernalis is the spring lady stresses. Historically, very few populations. This is a weed now. It's still staying endangered, but in any field that is unmowed, that has just grasses that's open full sun, this thing just seems to show up. And we have many new populations, including this one was on private land that I was actually going there for Exelectris and saw orchids blooming in the field. So that was new as well. Definitely not as rare as we once thought. There's just a few more slides. This was also really cool. So the only federally listed plant species in the Shawnee National Forest is Meade's milkweed. And it's still standing. Look at it this year blooming. Until several years ago, another funny story, Eric Lasik had a spot for this in Alexander County along Route 3. And Travis and I said, we've never seen this. Let's go down and see the current false aster. We saw it there. We had another site that we were going to anyway that day. We went up there. It was all over at that site, which was in the Shawnee National Forest. And now we can say there are 2 federally listed species there in the Shawnee National Forest. This is supposed to, if you listen to John Schwenke last night, he said this is only growing in the Illinois River Valley, and he found it down in the Cape Girardeau area. This is across the river from Cape, near about the bridge to Cape, Route 3, basically. So not too far from there. How did it get there? I don't know. but it's there. You can see that the current wings here with a leaf tissue that determines it's not the more common false aster or plony aspergillus. So that was a really, really neat find. Then there's a distribution we found it in Alexander County.
Isn't it? I don't want to go where it's at. Isn't it? What?
It is what? And there's hybrids too. We found the hybrids there.
For a short period of time, I worked at Missouri State Parks when they were restoring the Confluence Point State Park. And it was abundant there about from 2003 to 2007. And then all on its own, the numbers just plummeted. So it's a tough one to figure out.
I was asking Paul Marco about this, where they get surveys. He said some years there were millions, like uncountable numbers, and then a few years later, hardly any. They are biennials. And John talked about the flooding in '93 that really set them back. There's a lot that could be, and actually there's a woman named Paige who studies at out of the Great Rivers Research Center in Alton, and she's got a lot of information about this because there's the hybrid too, like I mentioned, which really throws a wrench in things. And then lastly, I wanted to mention this one because when I mentioned a holly fern earlier, that was in an article that I wrote in Arizona that had 2 additions to the flora. And it was the holly fern and this one, Trillium stamidium, which I found in the woods where I live. And there's a road that goes by and there's a slope down to a creek. And where I found it, I thought, if somebody planted this here, why would they plant it here? You can't even see it. It's not near the home. It didn't seem likely. Trilliums are dispersed by ants. Ants aren't going to carry them very far. If you look at the distribution here, but what had happened is when I posted it on Facebook, a friend of mine in Kentucky said, I found it recently in a county like somewhere in here. And I thought, okay, maybe it's good. And that's actually how I first met Dr. Nolenbrock. I wrote him and said, I found this trillium. I want you to check it out. We met at the McDonald's in South Carbondale. I took him out to the space and looked at it. And much to his credit, we talked earlier about how inspiring it was for so many people. He encouraged me to include it and write it up and document it. And I just wanted to include this because since then, I found where it had been planted next to someone's house closer by, and I'm pretty sure this is not a naturally occurring plant. It's probably planted there. I don't know by who or what. I talked to all the people that formerly owned the house that was adjacent to where it was planted, and nobody knew anything about it. So I felt like I did my due diligence. But now, 12 years later, I've determined that it's probably not naturally occurring in someone who's planted there. So I wanted to conclude and clarify that observation that I had made before. So we went on many field trips today, so I thought I would end with this E.O. Wilson quote that when you're a scientist, you never go on vacation, it's just look good. Well, thank you very much.